I'm going to show you a brilliant attacking game played by the one and only Hans Niemann. I know that you are wondering how Hans is doing. I have not made videos about his performances lately, but he is playing actually quite a lot. And right now he is in the United Arab Emirates playing a number of tournaments there. In his first tournament he ended on 6.5 out of 9 undefeated. Just half a point behind the tournament winner, so good result for him. But now in his second tournament, he's doing even better. At the moment of recording, he is on 3.5 out of 4. And I'm going to show you his crushing victory in round 2 against a very strong and experienced Grandmaster Vakhidov. And well, this is fantastic attacking play. So just if you like all these videos, just make sure to subscribe to the channel. Consider making a small donation or give generously, up to you how you feel like it's worth supporting the channel. I appreciate all the support, so thanks for that. And well, let me show you what Hans is doing in this game. He's playing with white. It's a classical time control, 90 minutes plus 30 seconds increment. So Hans starts the game with 1 e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. And we have the Rue Lopez Spanish opening. Black goes for the move a6, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes back to a4. And Vakhidov decides here to play the Steinitz variation. Steinitz deferred, I should say, with the insertion of the move a6 and bishop a4. So this is considered to be a flexible system with ideas to play later on aggressively. White played here the move c3. And I said later on aggressively, but here Vakhidov played immediately the sharpest move out there, f5, which is a very ambitious move to challenge the pawn on e4. And this is called the Siesta variation, which in my opinion is kind of a bizarre name for such a sharp opening variation. Maybe you don't see how sharp it is yet, but give me a few moves, we will get there. White takes on f5, bishop takes f5, castling kingside is played, and one of the main ideas of black here is to put the bishop on d3 to attack the rook. But most importantly, this bishop is disrupting white's queenside development, as especially the knight, but also because of that the bishop on c1. They're all unable to move. So after the move rook to e1, the bishop goes to e7, so black is intending to continue its development here with moves like knight f6, castling kingside. If that happens, black seems to be doing fine. But Hans played ambitious move. You can play in a solid way like bishop c2 and try to trade off that bishop on d3. But the move queen b3 is probably more challenging, as you do attack the pawn on b7. If that pawn is gonna drop, then the knight on c6 is also more vulnerable, no longer defended. And the queen, of course, covers some light squares. So here black has to think about how to deal with that threat of queen takes b7. Rook b8 is one option. But Vakhidov played here this move, b5, attacking the bishop, and the bishop is trapped. But immediately replied here, queen d5. This is still theory, as now the queen is hitting both the bishop and the knight on c6. Critical moment, because black can try to do something about one of these threats, can also consider taking the bishop on a4. The best option here is to protect the knight, so that your king is relatively safe still, and if you do take on d3, you can take the pawn on a4. Probably white is a bit better here with precise play, but I wouldn't be surprised if black does eventually get a chance of completing his development and maybe later on try to play for some piece activity on the king side. Anyway, Vakhidov played here this move, bishop to f5, which is an interesting idea, as he wants to meet the move queen takes c6 with the move bishop to d7, attacking the queen, and on the next move you're able to regain the piece by taking on a4. Let's take it back, because white is not forced at all here to take the knight with check, but instead here the key move is bishop to b3. So the knight is still under threat, and the bishop and queen, they're teaming up and threatening here. Queen f7 check, after which the bishop is hanging as well. So here black has to make some awkward decision. Play the move king d7. So the king defends the knight on c6. Big moment in the game. And Hans played a good move, but not the best one. And the move, which is the strongest here, is very interesting. I really want to show it, so I'm deviating a bit from what happened in the game. But here there's this huge blow of rook takes pawn. It's an exchange sacrifice. If you do take it with your knight, there is knight takes e5 check. The d pawn is pinned. If the king goes to e8, it's checkmate on f7. Well, in case the king goes to the other side, it is queen takes rook with checkmate, as the knight takes away the d7 square. Let's go back. After rook takes e5, because in fact it's not such a difficult move. These guys, they see that the pawn on d6 is pinned. So knight takes e5 is the only move, but it's easily refuted. So why did Hans not play this move? Well, there is knight f6 as an intermediate move, so that you do attack the queen, and if queen, well, the queen doesn't have many good squares to go to, right? If the queen goes somewhere, then the rook can be taken. But here the key shot is rook takes e7. And still, we are in the analysis. And the point is that if you take with the queen, it's queen takes f5 and you're recapturing with check. You have 2 pieces and a pawn for the rook. White is winning. While if you do instead take with the knight, so you attack the queen, you keep your bishop defended, then it's once again this knight e5 idea. And after both king moves, it's the same mating pattern as we have seen earlier. So missed opportunity, black is completely busted, but okay, Hans played it safe, missed his tactical shot, played knight d4, which is not bad at all. You're attacking the bishop, you're threatening to take the knight as well, so knight takes d4 and c takes d4. So you're intending to take on e5, open up the center. But black played here the move, knight f6, attacking the queen. So the queen goes back to f3, so trying to keep fighting for the initiative, hitting the bishop on f5. The bishop goes away with tempo to hit the queen as well. And here the queen goes to g3. So white, if it's given one more move, there would follow this idea of taking on e5. And well, the center will be open. That's really bad news for the king on d7. So black decided to take here himself on d4. White plays h3. To attack the bishop. The bishop goes back to f5. And now nice idea as queen f3 is played. Tickling this bishop on f5. Doesn't have many good squares to go to. For instance, if you go away with the bishop, then you're weakening the e6 square. So the bishop will come in. And well, after the king goes back to e8, you're ready to go d3. And finally, white is able to get the 3 pieces from the queen side into play, while black is stuck with his own king in the center. So that's not a good idea. Black has to find another solution. Played here g6 to protect the bishop on f5. And well, there are options here to try to trap the bishop with an immediate g4, but much stronger is d3, so that the pawn is taking away the e4 square. So here, g4 is a serious threat when the bishop doesn't have a square to go to. Black therefore goes for h5, discouraging white from playing that move. Now the bishop goes to g5. That's a nice square. You can sit nice on that square with pressure on black's pieces. c6 is played, so that the d5 square is under control. So here white brings the knight into the game. All white's pieces are ready to join. And how should we evaluate this position? Well, I think black is in deep trouble because the king is not secure at all. Rook c1 is an idea, maybe even the other rook. Try to play a4 very soon. But there are always also attacking ideas against the bishop on e7, the knight on f6. So this doesn't look good for black at all. Well, black played here the move queen f8. May look strange, but the idea is that after the move a4, the queen comes to g7. So the queen keeps in touch with its own bishop, supporting the safety of its own king, while the rooks are connected here as well. So no immediate way to break through, but white builds up the tension here with the move rook ec1, threatening to take on c6. So therefore black doesn't want to play something like rook a e8, and you can take on b5 and the a file will be opened. So black plays d5, but here it is, queen to f4. That's another great move with the simple idea of winning the pawn on d4 and take it from there. So that is okay. I mean, in fact, black is at this point a pawn up, but the pawn on d4 will be gone very soon. Black played here the move c5 to keep the pawn defended. But there was another idea behind White's last move, queen f4, as the knight comes into f3 with a check coming on e5. So bishop to d6, and anyway, Black is threatening the queen, but knight e5 on the board. It is check. You don't want to take on e5. After queen takes e5, your knight is going to be lost, and your rook on c5 as well. White is going to take that pawn. So here, this is just looking awful. Black played here king c7, and for the moment, Black is hoping to have found a safe spot for its king to hide behind this massive pawn block. But probably Hans had seen this coming from afar and came up with the devastating sacrifice. Rook takes pawn, removing that important defender of the king. It's a check. Bishop takes rook, of course. And now the other rook comes to c1. So you're about to take on c5 and maybe even take on d4 as well. And then you have just so many attackers that it's, well, you don't feel as if you're even an exchange down. Black defends here with the move king b6, the bishop. But now it's bishop takes knight. That is just a very good move, because if you recapture with the queen, which was not played, there is knight d7 with a huge knight for winning the queen, as after bishop takes d7, the f-file is open and you can take on f6. So that is great. Instead of queen takes bishop, there is also queen h6, offering the exchange of queens, and you're trying to solve the fact that your rook is hanging. No time to take on h8 because the queen hangs. But anyway, there is this beautiful idea of knight d7 check. The attack is still in progress. Of course, the knight is eliminated by the bishop, but now another forcing move, a5, attacking the king, and you're ready to come in with your queen on c7, or if the king goes back to b7, there's bishop takes d5. Black has no choice but to take the pawn on a5. Then it's queen c7 with check. If you go king b4, you take the bishop, and after taking the bishop on b3, it's checkmate on a3. So let's take it back. After queen c7 check, bishop b6, blocking with the bishop is the only move. But now simple check on a1, forcing the king to go to b4, and then it's queen takes b6. And well, the king is in trouble. You're an exchange down, but ready to win back a lot of material. But more importantly, you're looking for mating ideas against that king, because the king doesn't count on the support of its own pieces. King takes bishop. Your rook up as black. Maybe you start to remember that famous game of Garry Kasparov against Topalov. This brilliant game played in Wijk aan Zee many years ago. I covered it also on the YouTube channel in last January. Very similar. Here, the king is even more vulnerable, but White doesn't need that many pieces. He can just play with the queen, rook, and bishop. So here, queen takes, pawn on d4, threatening checkmate on c3. So rook c8 played to prevent the queen to come to that square. But you can take on d5, which is a good move. If king goes back, well, you're not really able to run back to a safer place, because there's bishop e7, and it's also a checkmate. All the remaining squares are covered. If you play rook c5, it is bishop takes rook with mate. So king c2 played in the game. And here you're looking for a killer blow. Many good ideas. I thought that the move played by Hans is the most, well, the easiest one for sure. Is just b4, because you move the pawn out of the way, so that you're opening up the path for your queen to come back to a2 to give a check. And then, well, if you got to take on d3, it's rook d1 with very soon it's going to be checkmate. So black still tried here king d2, so that if you give a check, you can maybe block with your rook. It's not really going to help either, but there's no need to look for mate here. Complicated forcing lines. If you can just give a check with your bishop, you're winning the queen, and therefore it was time to resign. This was A very spectacular king hunt by Hans Niemann, who is now on the live rating list 2697, only 3 points away from getting back to the 2700 group, the elite group of top players in the world. There are still 5 more rounds to go at the Sharjah Masters. And let's see if Hans is able to keep up his rhythm from the previous rounds. Very impressive game. Let me know in the comments what do you think of it. And if you do like this video, just don't hesitate and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for the support. Stay tuned for more action on this channel. Bye bye.